Well, we're off doing something weird and yet interesting. What else is new about that? Nothing, really. We're heading over to the International Model Car Builders Museum, which is here in Salt Lake City. If that seems sort of weird and obscure, it's because it's weird and it's obscure. But we're going to be looking at a model that they've got over there, the model that never was. Check this out, it's very interesting. The International Model Car Builders Museum is full of some really cool stuff. These are mostly kits that date from the 1960s. This because back in the 1960s, car building and model building was just a national rage. It was as big as video games is today. Now, there were lots and lots of subjects being offered as plastic models, but one of the most popular was the 1/24th scale automobile. Now, this is the kit that never was, and that's because this kit was produced instead. This is a 1/4 scale Chrysler Slant 6-cylinder engine. It is an extremely accurate recreation of the Chrysler Slant 6 engine. The Slant 6 engine had been developed in 1960 by Chrysler and was being heavily promoted as the best 6-cylinder engine ever made. The kit was amazingly popular with auto enthusiasts. It went together just like a real engine, and that was really fun. Now, it did tend to read a little bit like an ad for Chrysler Corporation. It was used heavily to promote the Slant 6 engine. Okay, for this next bit to make sense, you need to understand how model car kits were made. These are 1/8 scale master bucks. They were made in 1/8 scale because it's much easier to build a car in that size. The molds were carved on something called a reduction pantograph at a factor of 3, and that reduced them down to 1/24th scale cars. But because the masters were done in 1/8 scale, this ensured good detail and parts fit. Monogram models even made a 1-to-1 set of molds off their 8 scale bucks, producing this model, the Big T. Anyway, what Revell models did is they took the actual parts of a Slant 6 engine, put that on the reduction pantograph, and that made molds for a very detailed 1/4 scale Slant 6 engine. The finished model is just amazing. It looks just like a shrunken engine because, well, it actually is just a shrunken Slant 6 engine. Not surprisingly, the kit was very popular. So let's get back to the kit that never was. It was a Chevy 283 engine made the same way. When Revell was contemplating the project, they approached General Motors and said, "Hey, we'd really like to do the 283 engine. How would you like to help?" And General Motors said, "Go ahead and do it, and we won't sue you, but we're not going to help you. In fact, you'll have to buy your own engine." And that's exactly what Revell did. They went ahead and carved the entire kit on the reduction pantograph off of a 283 Chevy V8 engine. And yes, it is amazing. But when Chrysler heard about the project, they approached Revell and said, "Hey, you should be doing the Slant 6 instead. And in fact, we will reimburse you for all of your costs to this point, over $100,000, provided you destroy the molds and all of the test shots that you have made off of those molds, producing the 283 and produce the Slant 6 instead. Moreover, we will cover all of the production costs of the Slant 6." And needless to say, Revell agreed to their terms. So how is it that these engines survive?
And actually, when I was a kid, I always loved cars. So.
Okay, we can thank this guy here, Jim Keeler. Now, he was just a kid working at Revell. They had hired him to help with marketing because they figured having a kid on staff could tell them what kids wanted to model. And he was working there helping them figure out what in the world they wanted to build. And he stole the test shots. And now All of the known surviving bits and pieces are here at the International Model Car Builders Museum in Salt Lake City on display. It's incredibly tragic that this kit was never produced. When you see it here, it is just absolutely amazing. And man, would I love to have one. Well, at least I do have several Slant 6 kits. None of them are in very good shape, but I'm always looking for parts and bits and pieces. And eventually I plan to have a complete, very, very well restored promotional model for the Chrysler Corporation. For what it's worth, Monogram models did go ahead and produce the 283, but in 1/8 scale, and it's not nearly as detailed or accurate, but they made it to go in their Big T models. They also offered a motorizing kit for that, and should you be lucky enough to find one of those, you can motorize your V8 engine and in fact your Big T. Well, that's some interesting history. I am not really a big fan of the Slant 6 engine, but I suppose there are many people who are. Have you ever had a Slant 6 in anything?
No, but my friends have had a Slant 6, and I've seen them. I thought they looked ridiculous when I first saw one, but, you know, half of a V8, it looked really strange.
It's an oddball engine when you get right down to it, and yet Chrysler really went deep into their marketing to try to promote this as the best 6-cylinder engine ever built, and to this day it has its following. It has a cult following in a strange sort of way. I personally am much more a fan of the 283, the sort of ubiquitous hot rod engine. I mean, if you were going to build a T-bucket, you would probably stick a 283 in there. I mean, not necessarily. You might stick any number of different engines in there. I'm sort of fond of the Ford FE block. But the ubiquitous engine that you would find in a thing like that is the 283. And that Chrysler went to such great lengths to sort of destroy the heritage of the 283, supplanting it with their own Slant 6, I think is just really, really, really interesting and weird. Well, if you haven't been over to the website, you might want to bounce over to the website. That's a good deal of fun, toymantelevision.com. And of course, the channel, that's just Toyman Television here on YouTube. And you can get to that by clicking on the rocket ship logo or waiting for the subscribe button to pop in. And if you're a subscriber, that'll take you to the channel. Now, if you are not a subscriber, shame on you, first of all, but if you're not a subscriber, the button will be popping in just about now, and you can click on that, and that will subscribe you, and it will take you to the channel. So that's all very good. Well, we're not sure how you found this fun and interesting movie on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring. And we will see you here again in 1 week with some more significant and informative screwing around. We'll see you then.